For many Hunter x Hunter fans, the Chimera Ant Arc is not only the best arc in the series, it is one of the greatest arcs in all of anime. The Chimera Ant is emotional, philosophical, and carefully constructed. It gives us Miriam and Komugi, Gon's transformation, Netero's final battle, and one of the most powerful conclusions in the entire series. But I do not believe it will remain Hunter x Hunter's greatest arc, because the manga is currently telling a story that is even more ambitious. A story involving a royal succession crisis, 14 princes, competing queens, military factions, assassins, 3 mafia families, the Phantom Troupe, Hisoka, Beyond Netero, the Dark Continent Expedition, and one of the most complicated Nen conflicts Togashi has ever created. That story is the Succession Contest. And while it is still unfinished, I believe it has the potential to become Togashi's greatest narrative achievement yet. Not simply because it has more characters, not simply because it is more complicated, but because almost every faction, character, and plotline exists inside the same interconnected system, and sooner or later all of those conflicts are going to collide. So, today I want to explain why the Chimera Ant Arc remains Hunter x Hunter's most complete masterpiece, but also why the Succession Contest will eventually surpass it. In my view, the foundations are in place for it to become the greatest arc to ever be told in Hunter x Hunter and potentially all of Shonen Jump. To understand why the Succession Contest is so impressive, we first need to understand what makes the Chimera Ant Arc so successful. On the surface, the story appears simple. A dangerous species begins consuming humans, reproducing and evolving. The Chimera Ants become an existential threat, and the Hunter Association sends an extermination team to stop them. It sounds like a conventional battle shonen conflict. Humans against monsters. But Togashi gradually destroys that distinction. The Chimera Ants begin as creatures controlled by instinct and hierarchy. They consume humans, inherit their characteristics, and slowly begin developing individual personalities. They form identities, they develop ambitions, loyalties, fears, and moral values. Some become crueler, others become more compassionate. And through Miriam, Togashi takes this transformation to its furthest possible conclusion. Miriam begins his life believing that physical power determines the value of every living being. To him, weakness has no purpose. The strong have the right to control or destroy those beneath him. Then he meets Komugi. Komugi is a physically fragile, socially insignificant, and almost completely powerless by Miriam's original standards. But she possesses something he cannot defeat. Through Gongi, she demonstrates a kind of strength he does not understand. And the more time Miriam spends with her, the more his understanding of value begins to change. He develops patience, curiosity, respect, and eventually love. While Miriam slowly becomes more human, Gon moves in the opposite direction. Gon enters the arc as one of our heroes. one of our main protagonists. He is young, energetic, and apparently innocent. But his innocence has always contained something dangerous. Gon is compassionate, but his compassion is selective. He can accept violence when it aligns with his own goals, and when he loses Kite, his grief becomes an obsession. By the time he confronts Pito, Gon is no longer acting like the innocent hero we first met during the Hunter exam. He threatens an innocent person. He ignores Killua's attempts to reach him, and he sacrifices almost everything he has, not to save someone, but to satisfy his anger. Miriam, the monster, learns compassion. Gon, the human, abandons it. And between them stands Netero. Netero understands that Miriam is no longer a simple animal. Miriam is willing to negotiate, speak, and search for an alternative to total war. But Netero is not acting only as an individual. He represents humanity, and when he realizes that he cannot defeat Miriam through strength alone, he reveals humanity's final advantage, not superior morality, but an almost limitless capacity for destruction. That is what makes the Chimera Ant Arc so powerful. It is not simply asking whether the ants are evil. It is asking whether humanity has any right to consider itself morally superior. The arc begins as a conflict between humans and monsters. By the end, those categories has almost completely collapsed. And all of this leads to an emotionally complete ending. Miriam does not die in battle. He spent his final moments beside Komugi, asking whether she is still there. That conclusion is why the Chimera Ant Arc remains the standard against which every other HunterxHunter arc is judged. It is not only ambitious, it delivers. To understand the succession contest, we also need to understand how Togashi uses his protagonists. HunterxHunter has 4 central protagonists: Gon, Killua, Kurapika, and Leorio. At the beginning of the series, they appear to form a traditional main group, but Togashi does not keep them together permanently and for very long. Although all 4 reunite during the York New City arc, the series increasingly separates their journeys and changes its central character depending on the story being told. Gon and Killua drive the more traditional coming-of-age side of HunterxHunter. They train, they explore the world, they become stronger, but their journeys are also psychological. Killua begins as a child, whose identity has been constructed by his family. He has been taught that he is an assassin, that emotional attachment is dangerous, and that his future has already been chosen for him. His story is about escaping that control and learning to make choices for himself. Gon begins with a much simpler goal: to find Jin, his father, and understand why becoming a hunter was important enough for his father to leave him. But Gon's journey gradually reveals the darker side of his personality. His selfishness, recklessness, and willingness to destroy himself when reality refuses to follow his expectations. After the Chimera Ant and Election arcs, Gon and Killua reach a natural turning point. Gon finally meets Jing. Killua finds a new purpose through protecting Aloka. I would be remiss if I did not mention the state of Leorio, as he is kind of the forgotten protagonist, as he has not been a central or primary part of any arc since the two first ones. He had a somewhat significant part to play within the 13th Hunter Chairman election arc, but he isn't utilized as well as the other main characters, and the reason for this might either be 1. Togashi had an original idea and plan for Leorio, but due to his illness, he might have had to prioritize his efforts and thus decided to focus on the other characters' plot points and narratives, or B. His story and plot points are saved for a later arc. I personally don't see nor believe the last one, however it could be plausible. Kurapika's story has always been about grief, revenge, and the search for meaning after an unimaginable loss. The Phantom Troupe massacred the Kurta clan and stole their scarlet eyes. From that point onward, his life became defined by two goals: recover the eyes of his people and punish the people responsible for their deaths. But the most important question in Kurapika's story has never simply been whether he can take revenge. The real question is what will remain of him afterward. During Yorknew, Kurapika is already willing to sacrifice his health, his relationships, and potentially his life to complete his mission. The succession contest intensifies all of these things. Kurapika boards the Black Whale because Prince Suratnik possesses the final known collection of scarlet eyes. But he cannot simply approach Suratnik and take them. Instead, Kurapika becomes the bodyguard of Queen Ueto and the infant 14th Prince, Wobble. This places him in a conflict much larger than his personal mission. He is no longer responsible only for himself. He is protecting a mother and a child trapped inside a ritual designed to eliminate almost every possible heir to the throne. And the longer Kurapika remains involved, the more responsibilities he accepts. He trains other bodyguards in Nen, he negotiates with hostile factions, he investigates assassinations, he manages alliances, he gathers information, and he repeatedly uses Emperor Time, an ability that shortens his lifespan every second it remains active. That makes the succession contest a perfect culmination of Kurapika's character. He is pursuing the final object connected to his revenge, while simultaneously discovering new people he cannot allow himself to abandon. His personal mission tells him to focus on the Scarlet Eyes. His humanity forces him to protect Wobble and Ueto. The more he cares about the people around him, the more he has to lose. And the more pressure he faces, the more willing he becomes to sacrifice himself. The external structure of the arc reflects Kurapika's internal conflict. He is trying to control a situation that becomes more uncontrollable with every new development. The succession contest may appear completely different from earlier HunterxHunter arcs, but it actually combines many of Togashi's previous ideas. It has Yorknew's criminal underworld and competing agendas. It has Greed Island's complex rules and restrictions, Chimera Ant's psychological tension and moral uncertainty, and the political maneuvering of the chairman election. Most importantly, it expands on the Nen power system. Nen is no longer primarily about fighting, it becomes part of politics, law, inheritance, surveillance, and post-mortem abilities. Victory is not determined by who has the largest amount of aura. A physical weak character with the right ability and information may be more dangerous than an experienced fighter. Characters succeed because they understand the situation, the systems, conceal information, interpret an ability correctly, or manipulate someone else into acting. Togashi has always written power as something contextual. The succession contest applies that principle to an entire story structure. The Chimera Ant Arc remains HunterxHunter's most complete narrative achievement. It has extraordinary character development, powerful themes, and an ending that justifies everything that came before it. The succession contest has not yet earned that status. It is ongoing, and the current complexities within the story carries real risks. But its potential is undeniable. If Togashi can bring the royal conflict, the mafia war, the new Nen system, and all the personal vendettas together without losing Kurapika as its emotional center, it could become the greatest arc in HunterxHunter. So I am not arguing that the Chimera Ant Arc is overrated. I am arguing that HunterxHunter still has its best stories to come. But what do you think? Can the succession contest surpass the Chimera Ant Arc, or has the Chimera Ant Arc set a standard the series will never reach again? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. And thanks for watching.